Hi, this video will explain the difference between the MEMO and wrapped MEMO tokens and dispel any misconceptions about them. One thing that I wanted to prove to myself was that I still get rebasing rewards even after wrapping my MEMO. This confused me because the amount of wMEMO I receive after wrapping remains constant even during rebases. This video will show in a couple of ways that rebasing rewards still happen with the wrapped MEMO token. Before getting into all that, I want to just define MEMO and wMEMO first. MEMO is the staked version of the time token. MEMO has a 1-to-1 ratio to time, so if I have one MEMO, I can unstake it and redeem it for exactly one time token. That's all it is. The problem with the MEMO token is there's no market for it. You can't exchange it for anything else since it has to remain staked. This is where wrapped MEMO comes in. More generally in DeFi, wrapping a token pegs it to an underlying asset so that the wrapped version can be used on different blockchains. For example, wrapped BTC is first pegged to Bitcoin by locking it up in a custodial vault on the blockchain, and then an equivalent amount is minted on the Ethereum blockchain in the form of wBTC to be used or transacted on the Ethereum network. This definition of wrapping a token isn't entirely being followed with wrapped MEMO. wMEMO in this case isn't pegged to anything really. It's more like a voucher indicating that I have ownership of the staked MEMO tokens and staking rewards. At any time, I can redeem this voucher for MEMO tokens. Since wMEMO can be used on the Avalanche blockchain, which is the network that Wonderland and Time lives on, it doesn't really have cross-chain functionality. The exception is wMEMO bridged to the Phantom blockchain, which is possible using the bridge function on Wonderland. If I bridge wMEMO to the Phantom network, I can then use it on Phantom decentralized apps. So technically, in this case, it would be wrapped MEMO. So what's the relation between MEMO and wMEMO? The confusing thing for me was understanding wrapped MEMO gives me a constant number of wMEMO token that forever remains the same number but still captures the rebasing rewards of the regular MEMO token. For example, if I wrap my MEMO tokens and received one wMEMO, I will always have one wMEMO despite the rebasing rewards. The way wMEMO still captures the rebasing rewards is with a price increase. For simplicity, let's assume the price of time stays constant in a day and that I start the day with one wMEMO token worth $10,000. At the end of the day, after 3 rebases, I will still have one wMEMO token, but the price would have risen to $11,000. The hypothetical change of $1,000 in this case is the rebasing rewards. That's not to say that the price of my wMEMO can't go down. It is still subject to the market price of time, but it reflects the original balance of my MEMO plus rebasing rewards. I prove wMEMO still captures the rebasing rewards to myself in a couple of ways. The first is to actually wrap my MEMO and then unwrap it to see that my MEMO balance increased after periods of rebasing. To do this, I click on the wrap button in Wonderland, approve the transaction to wrap, input the amount I want to wrap, and then confirm the transaction through MetaMask. After a few seconds, I can see that my MEMO tokens balance has gone to 0 and my wMEMO tokens have increased. To check this in my MetaMask wallet, I import the wMEMO token to check my balance. I let some time pass to allow a rebase to happen. Then I do the reverse process to unwrap my wMEMO to convert them back to regular MEMO tokens. I started off with 0.843 MEMO tokens, and after wrapping and unwrapping, I now have 0.848 MEMO tokens. This is proof that the rebasing rewards still count after wrapping. The second way I proved this to myself was actually looking at the wMEMO and MEMO smart contracts to understand the equations and how they worked. Warning, there will be some math at this point. If I look at the wMEMO smart contract, I can get the convergence function between MEMO and wMEMO. It basically says this. Wrapped MEMO is equal to the MEMO amount multiplied by some decimal scale factor divided by some number, let's call it MEMO index, where the MEMO index is calculated by a function called index. So I set off to find what the index function did, and I found this on the MEMO smart contract page. I won't bore you with the contract code, but the index function returns this equation, which says the MEMO index equals the all caps index variable multiplied by the total supply of MEMO tokens divided by something called the total GONS. The total GONS variable is a carryover from Olympus style fork, and I don't know what it stands for, but I don't need to. If I substitute this equation into the wMEMO equation, I get that wMEMO equals the memo amount times the scale factor times the total GONs divided by the product of the index and the total supply of MEMO. A scale factor, total GONs, and the index variables are all constants. If the wMEMO amount stays the same, this must mean that the MEMO balance must increase at a rate equal to the total supply of MEMO, which makes complete sense since rebasing is increasing the supply of MEMO tokens. I further proved this by plugging the numbers into the equation and was able to match the conversion rate between wMEMO and the equivalent amount of wMEMO displayed on Abracadabra. These numbers can be found on the MEMO and wMEMO smart contract pages on Snowtrace. I'll say one last thing, and that's commenting on the utility of the wMEMO token. It allows me to effectively use my MEMO tokens as collateral and unlocks my funds for other investments. This is where the whole 9-9 stuff comes in, which I will probably do a later video on. And that's it. I hope you got something out of this video and understand a little bit more about what MEMO and wMEMO are and how they function. Will you be wrapping your MEMO tokens? Let me know what you think in the comments below. As always, stay safe and thanks for watching.